What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, August 20th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 16:28 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and from Europe and from here in the US. So, the New York Times has reported this afternoon that apparently, in a classified document approved in March, Biden ordered U.S. forces to prepare for possible coordinated nuclear confrontations with Russia, China, and North Korea. Wow. So, that's all the information that we have about this. We don't know any more details. But we do know that Biden ordered U.S. forces to prepare for coordinated nuclear confrontations with Russia, China, and North Korea. This was approved in March. And what you're looking at here is video footage coming out of Nebraska in Omaha showing a presidential doomsday plane up in the air right now, and it's flying with its tracker turned off. So normally when planes fly in the air, they have a transponder so they can be tracked, and the purpose of that is so planes don't collide with each other in the sky. But this one is flying with its tracker off. And we also have a lot of nuclear attack options being broadcasted this afternoon. So I don't know if something's about to go down with all these emergency action messages or nuclear attack options being broadcasted, and then this doomsday plane circling Omaha, Nebraska, which is where Offutt Air Base is. That's home of U.S. Strategic Command. There's actually a bunker underneath Offutt Air Base. That's where they took Dick Cheney and Bush after 9/11. So this is very concerning. And also, yesterday we had several U.S. military VIP planes go to various bases across the country from D.C. Some of them even went to NORAD and Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs. So something's about to go down. Now, in addition to the Doomsday plane, we currently have a Cobra ball up in the air, and Cobra balls are used to detect missiles and track their trajectories, and it's looping over North Dakota. And what's interesting is that it actually got aerially refueled by two KC-135s over South Dakota. So this thing is going to be up in the air for several hours if they refueled it. So probably staying up to make sure that nobody's trying to launch missiles at us to properly detect any incoming attack. So something is brewing, guys, okay? And we also had these high priority aerial refuelers go over the Atlantic yesterday. This particular aerial refueler, Blue 71, is associated with the 509th Bomb Wing, which is the stealth bomber wing. Okay, so these are used to refuel stealth bombers. Two of them went over the Atlantic yesterday and went to the UK. Here's the other one, Blue 72. Okay, these are specifically used to refuel stealth bombers and B-1 bombers. And then we also had several British aerial refuelers fly into the Atlantic yesterday and refuel something over the Atlantic and then turn around and come back, probably bombers that were flying with transponders off. And then we had these two high priority AWACS planes go to Crete yesterday from Tinker Air Force Base, probably to support any kind of attack on Iran by Israel and coalition forces. And yesterday we had some interesting activity in Belarus. So the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations sent a plane to what appears to be Belarus or possibly Bryansk. Okay, it turned its tracker off when it got into Bryansk Oblast, but this is the area right now where Ukrainian forces are invading Russia right here. So this plane appears to have either flown to Bryansk or somewhere in this area here in Bryansk Oblast or possibly into Belarus. But what's interesting is Belarus has now deployed aviation and air defense forces on the border with Ukraine. And Belarus has also deployed 1/3 of its army to the Ukraine border. Okay, so I don't know if Belarus is going to start attacking Ukraine and invading Ukraine. And in some areas of the Kursk region, regular units of the Belarusian armed forces are being recorded, according to Ukrainian military officials. And Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, said that Ukrainian soldiers that entered into Russia in the Kursk region were gathered from all over the front line, most of them having extensive military experience. And there's also Polish mercenaries. So Lukashenko's obviously afraid of Ukraine, okay, seeing how the Ukrainians stormed into Russia and they're now taking a major oblast in Russia. He's afraid that he could be next. And Lukashenko stated that Ukrainians will soon reunite with Belarusians and Russians because they will understand that in the West, they simply use them and abandon them. And Lithuania has begun construction of a military base about 20 kilometers from the border with Belarus. The facility is to be completed by the end of 2027 and will house up to 4,000 German soldiers. Okay, so that's 12 miles from the Belarus border. Lithuania is building a massive military base that's going to house 4,000 German soldiers. It's about time because as things stand right now, there are no NATO bases near Belarus in Lithuania. So if Belarus or Russia wanted to invade Lithuania, they could easily go in from Belarus and they could be in the capital Vilnius in just 30 minutes because Vilnius is just 20 miles from the Belarus border. And the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, said that after Ukraine's invasion of the Kursk Oblast, there can no longer be talks of any negotiations with Kiev. Okay, so Russia is saying no more peace talks, no more ceasefire talks, nothing. And Russian police have issued guidelines for residents of Kursk, Bryansk, and Belgorod regions regarding information security. Among other things, they urge people not to use dating apps, turn off closed circuit television that can be intercepted by Ukrainian forces, turn off geolocation, and even delve into phone books so as not to accidentally reveal their acquaintances in law enforcement agencies or the army should Ukrainian forces confiscate phones. So the Russians are paranoid. And the Russian Ministry of Defense has announced the creation of 3 new troop groups called Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk. So it looks like Russia is gearing up to send some forces into this region. And Ukrainian forces control 1,263 square kilometers in the Kursk region, according to Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's Armed Forces, Alexander Syrsky. He said the Russians are conducting a maneuverable defense trying to prevent further advance. And the Russians did try to set up a pontoon bridge over the same river, which the Ukrainians destroyed all the bridges on that river in an attempt to isolate Russian forces in Glushkova. And if they are able to take that piece of territory south of the same river, they're going to effectively double the amount of territory that they control. And we could see that in the coming days. And Ukrainian authorities have issued evacuation orders for the civilian population of Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine in the Donetsk region. Around 53,000 civilians, among them 4,000 children, are still in the city. So, crazy situation going on in the Kursk Oblast in Russia. And we had a massive amount of reconnaissance in Poland and the Baltics last night. And what's very concerning is there was actually a combat Sentinel plane that was sent to the Baltics last night. And the U.S. military only has 2 combat Sentinels, and their mission is to collect information on radar signals. Okay, they can pinpoint the locations of radars, and they deal with reconnaissance and electronic warfare stuff, and they report that information directly to the president and the Joint Chiefs. Okay, so it's a high priority electronic surveillance reconnaissance plane that reports directly to the president and the Joint Chiefs, and I've never seen one in Poland and the Baltics, okay? So that is a huge sign that Russia and Belarus are planning something in the Baltics and for Poland. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing their most aggressive discount yet on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewith.nyprepper.com. They've lowered the price of their 3-month food supply from $800 down to $500. 3 months of emergency food for $500. That is a really good deal, and it will last you 25 years because it is freeze dried and it's all packed within 6 rugged water resistant buckets. So you have all that food in a small package. You can store that pretty much anywhere. And you can also take it with you. If you have to bug out, you can throw that in your vehicle easily. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $300 off the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply, $500 for it. Also, they have free shipping and handling included. In addition to the 3-month supply, they also have a general store. And to get to their general store, you got to scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see the My Patriot Supply logo at the very bottom of the page. You click on that and it'll take you to their general store, and they have all kinds of discounts. And to get the deals, you got to use my link, preparewithnyprepper.com, and I'll leave the link in the description below this video. Possibly an attack or an invasion, okay? For them to send a combat sentinel is very unusual. And here you can actually see NATO reconnaissance plane that was flying in Estonia and Lithuania. And here you can see that combat sentinel that flew through the Baltics and into northern Poland. Okay, very rare plane to see, only 2 of them in the entire U.S. Air Force. And then there was a Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs plane that went to Kaliningrad, which is very, very interesting. And here we have a Swedish reconnaissance plane that was patrolling eastern and northern Poland at the same time as the Combat Sentinel. And then there was also this British RC-135 rivet joint reconnaissance plane that was patrolling the coast of Kaliningrad. So 4 reconnaissance planes over Poland and the Baltics last night, but the Combat Sentinel is the one that really caught my attention. And we're seeing some reconnaissance of the Danish Straits today. We had 2 German Navy recon planes fly near the Danish Straits in the last 14 hours or so. And we also have this aerial refueler airborne right now over northern Poland. But this one right here has been up in the air twice in the last 14 to 16 hours, okay? So that is very unusual. And this is the area in Russia that the Ukrainians control right now. So you can see the darker shaded area with the Ukrainian flags here on the right side. This is the area that they currently control. And then if you look on the left, this yellow shaded area is the area that the Ukrainians are about to take over because they cut off the Russian forces here from resupply and reinforcement. They destroyed the bridges, so the Russian forces cannot escape. They have to cross the river, so they're going to leave behind a lot of equipment here, because you can't cross a big river with tanks, okay? So they're going to leave behind a lot of tanks. There's already a lot of video footage showing T-90s. That's one of Russia's top tanks. Okay, actually right now that's their best tank, the T-90, because the T-14 or T-15 Armada, the Armada tank, the one that was supposed to be the best in the world, they never produced that one, okay? So the T-90 is actually their best tank that they have, and it's just an upgraded T-72. And so the Russians are just leaving behind equipment here and retreating because they can't cross this river, but the Ukrainians are about to take this whole section, okay? So this is huge news, and you can see by this fires map provided to us by NASA, you can see where the activity is taking place in Kursk. You can see all these red squares here. Okay, this is the area that they currently control near Koronovo, Suja, but now you can start to see some fires over here near Glushkova and this whole section here, Glushkovsky Rayon. Okay, this whole area here, this is the area where Ukrainians are going to take very soon and conquer it. And then you can see a bunch of fires here near Korov Yakovka. All right, so the situation is spiraling out of control, and this could be an excuse for Putin to use nuclear weapons because Ukraine has now literally invaded Russia and they're taking large swaths of territory. And the problem is that the Russians cannot use their scorched earth tactics on their own territory. Okay, they can't just go in and bombard their own villages and their own towns and turn them to dust like they do in Ukraine. That's why Russia's been so successful in Ukraine, is because they don't care about bombing cities and towns. They just bomb them to dust, okay, with artillery, with glide bombs, with whatever they have, anything and everything. They just launch it, whatever it is. Doesn't matter how accurate it is, doesn't matter how old it is, doesn't matter if they're civilians. They don't care about what the targets are, hospitals, schools. They just bomb everything, basically. And they can't do that on their own territory. So they're going to have to go in with infantry and fight the Ukrainians on the ground in these villages, in these towns. They're going to have to go house by house, barn by barn, tree line by tree line, wheat field by wheat field, and kick the Ukrainians out. And that's not going to be easy. Okay. So, very serious situation here. And here we have a picture coming from the Kursk nuclear power plant. And you can see a giant trench that was dug right outside of the Kursk nuclear power plant. Okay. So the Russians are obviously concerned that the Ukrainians are going to make their way through to this area soon. And I do believe Ukraine is going to try to take this potentially, and they could use it as a bargaining chip. They could tell Russia, listen, we'll give you back Kursk if you give us back Zaporizhia, something like that, and basically trade it. But this is very concerning that Russia's now digging trenches around the Kursk power plant. Okay, these are infantry trenches from what I can see here. It's a little bit hard to tell how wide this trench is, but this appears to be an infantry trench. It could also be an anti-tank trench or anti-vehicle trench, but it's kind of too narrow for that. Okay, it doesn't look to be too wide. For an anti-tank trench, you want it to be, several feet wide and several feet deep. But this looks like an anti-personnel trench that basically they would put infantry in here and they would just have fighting positions they could shoot from. And want to update you guys on the Middle East. So apparently Hamas has rejected the latest hostage deal / ceasefire offer put forward by the U.S. and mediators. Hamas is saying now that they're committed to what was agreed with mediators on July the 2nd. So Hamas rejecting the latest ceasefire deal. And this came after the Biden administration was bragging on Friday, oh, we're going to have a deal and it's going to be signed next week. Yeah, right. I told you they wouldn't have a deal. I told you. And I told you guys they wouldn't have a deal, and they're not going to have a deal. The Israeli military said it has eliminated a key member of Hezbollah's missile unit, Ali Hussein, and the spokesman for the IRGC stated earlier today that time is in our favor regarding retaliation against Israel for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, further saying that the waiting period could be long. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. And while meeting earlier today with the families of hostages still being held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu totally ruled out the possibility of withdrawing from the Philadelphia Axis and handing it over to either Egypt or the Palestinian Authority. So the Philadelphia Axis is basically the border of Gaza and Egypt. Okay, Israel controls that border, And by doing so, they control Hamas from fleeing into Egypt, or from Hamas going from Egypt into Gaza and reinforcing their forces in Gaza. Okay, so they're sealing off the border there between Egypt and Gaza. And so Netanyahu has ruled out that Egypt would take control of that corridor or the Palestinian Authority. So God bless Netanyahu for staying strong. And Azerbaijan has officially applied to join BRICS. And this comes after Putin visited Azerbaijan today. So very interesting. And I got an interesting email from a subscriber in Colville, Washington, saying that they received an emergency alert test yesterday and that it was about a missile test or something. And it was very similar to the message that was sent out to people in Hawaii a couple of years ago. So I don't know what this was about, but apparently an emergency street siren was also going off at the same time for about 2 minutes. And this person says that they contacted local law enforcement, but local law enforcement had no idea about any kind of emergency alert system test or anything like that. But this person got an alert saying that there was missiles coming, and they sounded an emergency street siren. So very interesting. This was in Colville, Washington. And Trump said that Kamala Harris declined a debate on Fox News in Pennsylvania. Instead, he will hold a teletown hall with Sean Hannity in Pennsylvania. And Trump announced today that he will ask for the death penalty for child rapists and child traffickers. And as the Democratic National Convention is underway, local and federal officials are on high alert for a possible biochemical attack. CBS reported that the Department of Defense funded decontamination rooms to be set up at Rush University Hospital in preparation for such an event. Rush University is located in Chicago, Illinois, just a few minutes from the venue where the DNC will be hosted. Numerous store locations have boarded up their windows in anticipation of possible violence as thousands of protesters have gathered outside. And there's already reports of bomb threats at the DNC in Chicago. The Secret Service is investigating. And we had a C-17 Globemaster go to Israel last night. This is a heavy cargo plane for the U.S. military, so we're moving some heavy cargo into Israel right now. And then here was one of the German Navy recon planes patrolling the Danish Straits. So we had this one last night, and then we have one up in the air right now. Okay, so this is right now, and this was last night. So something's going on over here. Okay, maybe Russian subs, I don't know. And then we also had a rivet joint, Jake 17, go all the way up to Scandinavia last night. And again, we had this U.S. Navy reconnaissance drone patrolling the coast of Libya near Tripoli. And what's interesting is Russia set up missiles here in Libya, and those missiles are aimed at various NATO bases in places like Spain, the Meran Air Base in Spain, where we have bombers. Sigonella's right there in Sicily. We have Getty and Aviano Air Base in Italy, where we have hundreds of our nuclear warheads stored there. So Russia has long-range missiles set up in Libya, and so this drone is keeping an eye on those missiles to see if they're ready to launch. And after visiting Azerbaijan, Putin went to Chechnya. So here he is landing in Chechnya and meeting with Kadyrov for the first time since 2011, apparently. So there's Kadyrov giving Putin a very warm welcome. So this is very, very interesting. Looks like Putin is trying to strengthen his ties in the Caucasus Mountains. Okay, very interesting. And here we have video footage of Ukrainian forces taking a T-90 from Russian forces in the Kursk Oblast. Okay, you can see them towing this abandoned T-90 in Kursk. So very, very serious, guys. Russia is leaving behind their best tanks. That would be like the Russians taking fully functioning M1 Abrams or Leopard tanks from the battlefield somewhere in eastern Ukraine after Ukrainians abandoned them. I mean, the Russians literally abandoned these tanks. They're fully functioning. They just abandoned them and fled. So this is huge, guys. It's a very serious situation. And here we have video footage of Ukrainian soldiers providing canned food to the locals in Kursk Oblast. And this woman right here was very thankful. She's a Russian woman, but she was very thankful that the Ukrainians provided some food. And the Ukrainians are setting up humanitarian corridors. There she is giving the Ukrainian troops hugs. So very, very interesting, though, that this Russian woman would be so welcoming, unless this is a fake video filmed for propaganda purposes. But very, very interesting. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news. I do have my 24/7 live stream ongoing. And I want to remind you guys that in probably just about 3 weeks or so, I'm going to be going to Poland for 2 weeks. So I won't be filming these updates as much, probably not at all. I'll try to put out updates if I have time, but I'm going to have limited time there. So I got to maximize my time over there. And I will be setting up my 24/7 streams from my hotel when I get there. So I'll still be doing the 24/7 streams from there, but I'm not going to be posting regular updates. But just get prepared, guys. A lot of stuff going on. We got a doomsday plane flying right now with no transponder on. We have nuclear attack options being broadcasted like crazy this afternoon. We have Belarus moving troops to the border of Ukraine. We have Russian forces digging trenches around the Kursk nuclear power plant. We have this high priority reconnaissance plane that went to Poland and the Baltics. So something is definitely brewing. And we still have the Iran-Israel situation to keep an eye on too. So I will be back later on tonight with another update. So until then, check out the 24/7 stream. And if not, I'll see you on the next one. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.